Alright, full disclosure, this video is being recorded in the afternoon. It's Thursday, December 9th, 3:43 p.m., so that's kind of the reference point as to where all the statistics and the numbers are coming from. A few hockey games have not happened yet, but I did want to go out there and pre-record the videos for the weekend because I do have a trip to go on. Let's talk about one of the bigger trade rumors that has been circulating around the NHL and its media sphere the past few weeks. Jake DeBrusk of the Boston Bruins. This has been a guy that, as we have highlighted in several videos in the past, was part of that 3-pick sweep of the Boston Bruins in the 2015 NHL Entry Draft where they failed to get anybody of significant value. Jake DeBrusk is the most valuable guy of the three amongst Zanishin, Zaboral, and himself, and he's a guy who has been in a pretty unfortunate spot for the Bruins the past few seasons. He's 25 years old today, playing on the left wing behind Taylor Hall and Brad Marchand. The Boston Bruins and their entire reputation of being a one-line team this season has made it so that pretty much everybody outside of that top line doesn't really do all too much, and Jake DeBrusk, after being a few years removed from a near 30-goal season in 2018-19, is down there with 7 points in 21 games this year. While I did like Matthew Barzal and Thomas Chabot and Kyle Connor and Brock Boeser a lot more than Jake DeBrusk ever since the 2015 draft, I've always been a pretty big believer in the skill set that he does have. He's a hard worker, a hard forechecker, 6 feet, 194, so a solid build. At his best, he's going out there and forcing things at his hand. But because of the way he has been developed in Boston so far, the lack of significant minutes, and the way he has been buried in the lineup, he came out with a trade request the other week, and it's been all that a lot of people have been talking about. Now, because Jake DeBrusk is a good old Canadian kid who's a big-bodied guy who's got some physical attributes, there have been upwards of 12 teams, maybe even more, that have been reported to being in on the Jake DeBrusk trade talks. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, which is the team that we're talking about here, they've been one of the many teams that people in hockey media are writing articles about and highlighting as a potential destination. Oh, these are the teams that could go out there and maybe see interest in a DeBrusk, and maybe go out there and gauge the market, and maybe go out there and think about doing a trade. It's teams like Vancouver, it's teams like Seattle, there's Edmonton, Calgary in there, there are a whole bunch of teams. But for the Vancouver Canucks, I wanted to highlight a very specific idea with this hockey team, because now that Jim Rutherford is the president of hockey operations, it makes things very interesting when you consider who exactly is on the Vancouver Canucks right now and what their pasts have looked like. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Jim Rutherford was a former Pittsburgh Penguins executive as well as Carolina Hurricanes executive. He's got 3 cups to his name. It's kind of funny because some names on the Vancouver Canucks are players that Rutherford has actually had history with, and in particular, one of them whose name is being mentioned in the title and the thumbnail. You know him, you love him, it's Tanner Pearson. Jim Rutherford is the guy who traded Pearson away from Pittsburgh over to Vancouver in the first place back in, 2019? For Eric Goodbranson, 1-for-1. Now, it gets even cooler when you look at somebody else who is on the Vancouver Canucks right now. Brandon Sutter, who we're still wishing a very speedy and healthy recovery to. Yeah, you kind of forgot that Sutter was on this team, right? Sutter has been traded by Jim Rutherford as well. Not just from Pittsburgh over to Vancouver in the Nick Bonino trade all those years ago, but also in 2012, when the Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Brandon Sutter, Brian Dumoulin, and a first, which became Derek Pouliot, for Jordan Staal. Jim Rutherford traded away Brandon Sutter when he was in Carolina, and he also traded away Brandon Sutter when he was in Pittsburgh. Now he is in Vancouver, and Brandon Sutter is here once again. So there are a few names that do have history under Jim Rutherford teams that have been moved either because of Rutherford or because he wanted to get these guys. But when it comes to our rumor here today, talking about Jake DeBrusk and the Vancouver Canucks, it comes to us over here from The Province. This is the article written by Ben Kuzma on December 1st, talking about, in the highlights over here, the fatal shooting in Michigan. Very tragic stuff over there. Some people are just so terribly irresponsible with their children and firearms. It actually blows my mind. But aside from the Michigan tragedy at Oxford that was highlighted in the title over here, Kuzma does go out there and write about the Jake DeBrusk trade rumor. So if we go down and scroll in this piece, we can take a look at the entire scoop on Jake DeBrusk. The Boston Bruins winger has asked to be moved, and the Vancouver Canucks have reportedly been lumped into several suitors for the pending restricted free agent. DeBrusk, 25, he's on an expiring contract, $3.675 million cap hit, and a $4.85 million in total salary, but he does not have arbitration rights leverage. His 6 points in 18 games this season. Okay, let's go ahead and check out where he's at right now. 7 points in 21 games right there. So just a tad better. Of course, I'm recording this audio a few days before it's going up on YouTube, so it might be even more different now, but still. DeBrusk is indeed in a slump compared to what he has been in before. Is a change of scenery really going to change a game trending in the wrong direction? Some obviously do think so. When highlighting the idea specifically about the Vancouver Canucks, because it was mentioned that Vancouver might be one of these teams that are interested, Kuzma says that if anything, a rumor turned into an acquisition would be a litmus test for what road the Canucks ownership chooses to travel. They know it's a money in, money out world of salary cap balance for a club willing to spend to the cap ceiling and getting little in return. Which is where our idea comes in. A retool of the current roster might make Tanner Pearson expendable to give Bo Horvat that crash and bang and net front winger. The reason why Pearson is the easy one to say here is because Tanner Pearson is also a left-wing player. He's a top 6 forward on the Vancouver Canucks, first line sometimes as well. 29 years old, 6'1", 201. He's making $3.25 million a season until the end of 2023-2024. So, just from a contractual point of view, if you're going to go out there and say that Tanner Pearson is one of those contracts that is sort of overpaid and that the Vancouver Canucks are kind of getting limited by, yeah, it's easier to look at just the cold, hard facts about the players and say Jake DeBrusk is younger. Jake DeBrusk and his $675 million AAV, it's expiring after this season, which gives you more flexibility if you were to hire a new GM sometime in the next few weeks and then say, okay, this is the direction that I want to go down, that in which was not really all too foreseeable for Benning and the guys when they were here before. If you just want to take a look at the points too, hey, Tanner Pearson's gone out there this season with 27 games played, 9 points. And it's kind of funny how he is completely depleted his game offensively. The guy just can't hit the net. Now, I get it. I'm recording this video Thursday, December 9th. The Canucks are playing the Jets tomorrow. If he goes out there and gets a hat trick, then okay, I'll eat my words in the comment section. But Tanner Pearson, when he was acquired by Vancouver initially from Jim Rutherford, was under a point per game after that Goodbranson trade. The season after, he was a 20-goal, 40-point guy in 69 games. Pretty nice right there. But last season wasn't good. This season, the numbers haven't been there either. Now, to be fair, Pearson is a very capable, defensively responsible player who does play well with Bo Horvat and that Canucks guys in the room love. But there's a reason why Tanner Pearson and the contract that he re-signed the other offseason was met with such criticism from the fan base, because a lot of people were saying, okay, well, we just spent all this extra draft capital and all that to trade away Beagle and Roussel and Eriksson, these guys that got overpaid for having those intangibles. Now we go out there and we re-sign Tanner Pearson, who had a season where his scoring touch was completely gone. He's all those intangibles now. And I get it, Pearson can be a goal-scoring player sometimes, but to me, he's overpaid. $3.25 million for a guy who is on pace for 27 points this season, playing first-line minutes with Bo Horvat. You go over onto the article and you talk about what is written here. Pearson has a no-trade clause this season in the first of his 3-year, $9.75 million extension. It reverts to a 7-team modified no-trade clause next season. DeBrusk could be long gone out of Boston by then. And so, just contractually wise, if you want to talk about the Vancouver Canucks and their apparent interest in Jake DeBrusk, which has been reported by other NHL insiders before, the immediate name that almost everybody in Vancouver thinks about when talking about a DeBrusk trade is Tanner Pearson, because the contract aligns, the position aligns, the deployment, you could say it aligns. Now, whether or not the guys in the locker room would like having a guy like Tanner Pearson depart their team in exchange for a 25-year-old Jake DeBrusk who has been touted as a bust all his life because he's not Matthew Barzal or Thomas Chabot, I'm not sure. But when it comes to just the asset management side of things, these guys are producing the same amount of points. DeBrusk is getting a lot less of an opportunity night in, night out on the Bruins than Tanner Pearson is with Vancouver. DeBrusk is also younger, and he's expiring this season in a prove-it kind of scenario, whereas Tanner Pearson, who is 29, is on the books for the next 3 seasons. So, to me, I kind of do feel like DeBrusk would be the more valuable asset just in terms of everything we talked about, but obviously, you know, NHL GMs, Boston, these guys are going to be able to see the same things that I'm seeing, so a 1-for-1 trade probably would not be equal in terms of the value. So, if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan and Jake DeBrusk does pique your interest, do you want to get this guy? Do you want to get the guy that was drafted alongside of Zaboral and Senyshyn before Shabbat and Connor and Besser and all them? The three-peat of, honestly, just kind of draft busts. Like, sorry, DeBrusk was a good NHL player for a solid amount of time. It's just this season, it's been a real big step back, and it's making that 2015 selection of 3 in a row look even worse when you consider how good the other guys are doing. But either way, talk to me in the comments if you're a Canucks fan. What do you think about Jake DeBrusk? If you're a Bruins fan, what would you want from Vancouver, if not for a Tanner Pearson? I know I kind of harped on the guy this video a lot, so you might go out there and say, okay, why would we want him? You just said all this bad stuff about him. Let me know in the comments what else you would want instead, if that is not the case. I hope you enjoyed this Shortlist 99, and bye.